handle the truth.
Hey everybody, welcome back. Saturday Night Cell Block. This is Thomas Freemy, and this is the Thomas Freemy TV and podcast show. Many blessings to everybody, man. I pray that everybody's safe and sound and comfortable in their homes. They're amongst loved ones, feeling the comfort of family and loyalty and trust and honesty and and all of these things that are really missing out of today's world. Maybe we'll cover some of that with my guest tonight. Before we get into that, please visit the link below when you have a chance, www.cominghomecoalition.com. Visit Project Start Fresh. That is the project that we have here in the Tampa Bay area that we run raffles to help with the homeless. And what we do is we find one individual, we take them from homelessness to self-sufficiency through raffles, gifts, things of that nature. You will find a raffle that we have going on March 25th for Tampa Bay Rays baseball tickets to the upcoming season. And depending on how the raffle goes, maybe we'll throw some more stuff in there, like this basket maybe that you see behind me. But we'll see how that goes. But without further ado, my guest tonight, his name is Cliff Panezich, and he is known, more commonly for Operation Stolen Base. But I ran across Cliff. I knew nothing about this here. I remember hearing about it in the news back when, I was in the feds watching ESPN and all this stuff. But I had no idea who this guy was. I just ran across him on TikTok, doing his thing, and man, was he articulate, and was he just saying the same things that I was saying, right? And then I found out who he was, and I looked into him, and I'm like, wow. So I'm going to bring Cliff on, and I'm going to explain to Cliff the appreciation that I have for him and why he is so important. So without further ado, let me bring on Mr. Cliff. How you doing, good sir?
And I appreciate it.
Oh, man, thank you. Thank you for coming on and blessing my show with your presence. As I was saying to my listener, Cliff, the reason why you're so important, I'm going to fix you a little bit here, bring you up. But the reason why you're so important, Cliff, is because you're a dream of ours, being the incarcerated individual. And the reason why is because you're popular. Your case went national. It was a national case. And with that being said, we dreamed of that inside where these national cases, these sports figures or entertainers would go through the system and go through what we've gone through, because nobody listens to us. We're nobodies, right? We're nobodies. We're at the bottom of the totem pole, but you're a national figure in some ways. Good or bad, you're still a national figure. And for you to come out and represent the way that you do, and I know I speak for thousands of us inmates that were inside, is a godsend, because the way that you're articulating the system is in a way that not many have that ability to do so. And that is why you and your message is so important. And I really appreciate you making this your platform.
Yeah, my biggest thing, and I appreciate that. I appreciate everything you have to say, is that, part of my story is that, this can happen to anybody in a simple lapse of judgment. I would say I did everything right in life for, 22 years, private school, good grades, college degree, transitioned into professional baseball. And in one simple lapse in judgment, which spanned, obviously my crime spanned over a long period of time. But when I decided to kind of cross that threshold into a life of crime, and we'll get into the reasons of why and how that happened. But what I'm saying is the reality of it is it can happen to anybody. And there's a lot of people in society that don't warrant that thought, right? That in one lapse in judgment, you could end up in the same place you ended up, I ended up. A lot of people think that the prison system is just for the heinous, hardened criminal, when in reality, the majority of people in there are people on low level drug type offenses that need rehabilitation, need to reintegrate into society, and need a second chance. And that's really, I use my platform, I tell my story because that's what gets attention. But that's really the true message and what I want to speak on and what I try speaking on.
Right. And that is the premise of what my program is. You have a lot of these individuals that come out of incarceration and they want to exploit it, and they themselves become no better than A&E or any of these other big channels that exploit the violence and the negativity of prison, for ratings, likes and subscribes and such. And whereas my channel, I don't really so much focus on the incarceration, because listen, if that's what you want to hear about, the suffering of man, there's plenty of channels for you to go to. I'm more interested in how we as American citizens are being incarcerated at the clip that we are. I mean, we have almost 3 million people, American citizens, incarcerated in the land of the free. So I'm more interested in that versus what the travesty of the inside of prison really is, and that is a complete different story in itself.
Yeah, for sure. And the thing I always say, and again, it's, I feel like society is brainwashed to think that only the heinous, grotesque crimes and hardened criminals go to prison, when in actuality, it can and is anybody. I always say, if you've ever had a single drink and got behind the wheel of a car, you were as close to going to prison as I have. And they'll be like, no, that doesn't happen. Except I did time with guys that were in prison for that, had a drink or two drinks, caused an accident, and they were a law-abiding citizen. Other than one night they had one or two drinks and got behind the wheel of a car. So anybody can end up there. And you're right. What goes on inside the prison system is another whole story. I talk about it some, but I'll never be one to come on here and be like, my time was ultra violent or extortion. My time wasn't like that. My time was super smooth inside the system, to be honest. And I feel like in today's day and age, it can be, if you know how to operate yourself and conduct yourself with respect and polish. But that doesn't mean mentally they're not still trying to break you down. And there is no rehabilitation, which is the biggest problem. So many people are there on low level drug offenses, which is not me. I've never used a drug a day in my life, right? But I was in the system and I see it, right? So there's so many people there that need rehab, and instead they send them to the prison environment, which is just more prevalent with drugs, right? So you send a drug addict into an environment where drugs are more readily accessible, rather than sending them to rehab, right? But rehab costs money and prison makes money. So, you make the determination of why that happens. It's pretty simple.
And this folks is why I have them on the show, because I mean that's it in a nutshell. And the more people that we have saying the same thing. Now, you were up in the Ohio system, right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I have this article, Operation Stolen Base, and this article was written by Sports Illustrated, right?
Yeah. November 2017.
By Luke Wynn. Yes. Okay. So you're familiar with this article.
I'm very familiar with the article. Yes.
Beautiful, because I was going to take a different approach to this show until I ran across this article. I was looking at a couple of things, and I ran across this article, and I guess what particularly stood out to me the most about this article was, aside for some of the errors in it, and that drives me absolutely crazy, especially when you have a professional platform like Sports Illustrated. But with that being said, was that this was a story that really had no story to it. It was just really just labeling you for what you did. And we'll get into kind of the specificities of that, because I actually want to go through this, because it actually timelines your life in a condensed version, I guess. But there was no depth to it. There was no depth to this article as to why you did it. None of that. So before we get into it, what was your take on this article when you were doing it and after you saw it come out?
So, I mean, I really have two takes on it. For one, they did me a favor, even though I think the article is poorly written. It gives my story legitimacy, right? If somebody doesn't know any of my story, I can direct them to the article. Here's a little bit of the backstory, whether or not I agree or disagree with it, right? And inside the prison system, and you know how that goes. This is not to say that I'm proud of my crime or what I did, but in there, you almost wear it like a badge of honor, right? I was the guy in Sports Illustrated, and being in a state prison, where it is a lot of low-level offenders. You do what you do to have to kind of navigate the system, right? So in there, I was that guy. I was that guy in Sports Illustrated, and that bought me a lot of respect in the criminal world, right? So you kind of just wear it and go with it in that environment. But as far as the legitimacy of it, it's completely one-sided. It wasn't. It got turned into, a hero and villain. I'm the villain, and this prosecutor, detective, FBI agent are the heroes. The things they won't mention in the article, or didn't mention rather, are that the prosecution decided to never track down a victim. That's not to say there aren't victims on my case. Obviously, I defrauded people. Um, but how do you come up with the fact that it's the crime is so severe that I have to serve 6 years in prison, but you can't even name on the record a single victim? There's not a single victim on the record, right? And then you dig a little bit deeper after the article comes out, or even before the article came out. I'm sorry, my prosecutor was fired for misconduct. My detective ended up resigning amidst sexual assault allegations or sexual harassment allegations. My FBI agent he's passed away. He's no longer an FBI agent. There's nobody left from the prosecution, and you got to ask yourself why, right? And we can get into that and how it was prosecuted, and kind of the shady things that they did. And that's not me looking for sympathy, right? I committed a crime. I needed to go to prison for a certain amount of time. But there are certain levels of constitutional rights that should not be violated, which were in my case. And if they're willing to do that to me over a forgery case, you can see how just about anybody can get put in the crosshairs. And I've always said, if they want you to go to prison, you're going to prison. It doesn't matter, guilty, innocent, indifferent, black, white, female, male. If they want you to go to prison, you're going.
And that's the bottom line, and that's the case in so many innocents. And always the first one that comes to mind is Temujin Kinsu. Temujin Kinsu is an individual that's been incarcerated for 40 years and still incarcerated. And this is one of the most notorious innocent claims in America. But yet, because of the current administration up there in the state of Michigan and all the corruption that lies in that government up there, this man is still incarcerated. So people don't understand. People
Well,
don't
even
understand.
recently, there's a news article that just came out in the last handful of days. A kid that was released after 18 years, because the cops fabricated evidence, because they had a grudge against him. So but my thing is, so now he's free, and thank God he's free. But what happens to these cops? They're not going to go to prison. All these cops, these prosecutors, they have immunity.
Hmm.
They have immunity, right? So what is the repercussion for them fabricating evidence against this man and costing him 18 years of their life? Would they get suspended, maybe lose their job? They're not going to prison.
You know that now that you said it, and I'm sitting here listening to you, I'm working with another innocent guy up in Mississippi by the name of Curtis Davis Jr. And I was just telling him the other day because he, him and I are going back and forth about some things. And like I told him, listen, when I was fighting law, I had to understand that my head was in the lion's mouth. So even though that I knew, and this prosecutor knew that they lied, they know that they're lying. You cannot attack them from that angle. You always have to give them the benefit of the doubt, right? And give them these weasels. These are weasels of human beings. You have to give them an opportunity to weasel their way out of the trouble that they know that they're in. So that is the game that we have to play in order to get our head out of the lion's mouth, because it's atrocious. But so let me go ahead and get into this article some. Um, they start the premise with, they're trying to capture the emotion. You do not need to go far in professional baseball to experience a stranger asking for your autograph. In the summer of 2008, it happens to Cliff on fireworks night, which draws less meager crowds than usual for the Sussex Skyhawks and the Independent Canadian American Association. Between the final out and the start of the pyrotechnics, kids line up, pens in hand, in the front row, just past the first base dugout in Skyline Stadium. Now, do you remember that night? Is that true?
I mean, I don't remember that night specifically, but that's how most nights were. That was every night. We played 13 out of every 14 days, and that was pretty much the scene after every game.
Mm-hmm. Just young kids, right? What ages were these kids?
Oh, young kids, anywhere from 5 to young teenagers. They're just kids that are looking up to us because that's the same dream they're ready to pursue. So we're idolized in their eyes in that city.
Mm-hmm. So, and the parents were there, right? Parents hoisting their kids up, getting, trying to get autographs, the whole nine, right?
For sure, absolutely.
So it's imperative, going on with the article, it is imperative to sign quickly. The clubhouse spread disappears fast. The Savillard veterans will book it toward the grub, leaving the rookies to oblige to the kids. Now, what does that mean? Like the veterans will take off and leave you, the rookies, to deal with all the autographed kids, right?
Yeah, pretty much. There's a clubhouse spread after the game. Once it's gone, it's gone. At that level of minor league baseball, so the veterans are heading to the clubhouse, and us rookies or younger guys are left to deal with the crowd. But I always felt like that was part of the duty, so I didn't mind it. I did it. That was comes with the territory.
Mm-hmm. Now, as a backup catcher trying to get by on $1,000 a month, Panezich, who grew up in a blue-collar family near Youngstown, Ohio, and who has just been passed over in the June MLB draft following his senior season at NAIA Martin Methodist in Pulaski, Tennessee, can't afford to miss any kind of free meal. I don't know what that means. What does that mean?
Because we were just low paid, low level paid. Like I said, we were playing 13 out of 14 days. I'm making $1,000 a month. Like, if you break it down hourly, I'm probably making a couple dollars an hour, if that.
And this is in minor league ball, right?
Absolutely, yeah. We're playing in front of anywhere from 2 to 10,000 fans a night.
And how
And
much
I'm
are tickets to go to a minor league baseball game?
games would have been like $10,
Mm-hmm.
a ticket.
Got it. Okay, so we can skip ahead. There's a picture of you fielding a pick in the dirt. And then as a picture here in the Can-Am League, Panezich is just some 22-year-old with a cortisone-injected right arm that is killing him, and a name that he assumes the local kids don't even know. That they still want his autograph is fascinating to him. He views autographs solely as commodities, things to be attained and sold. And he is well aware that right now the demand for his name, his signed ball, is non-existent. You want to speak on that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I was that kid growing up at games, asking any big leaguer for an autograph, not even necessarily knowing who it was or, what position he played or anything. You were just fascinated by it. But as I grew out of that stage, the whole idea of an autograph kind of mind boggles me, right? Like the thought of touching a pen or a marker to an object uh, gives it value. It's just fascinating to me. And it's really, I have very surreal moments now that I've been released where I kind of sit here and process that whole concept. Like I really spent 6 years in prison because I touched a Sharpie to a baseball or to a photo or to a marker. When you think of a criminal instrument or a criminal weapon or anything, You're not thinking a pen or a Sharpie. And it's very surreal moments. And I make jokes about it often because that's how I deal with it. Because if I really like dug in deep to the core of it, it's like, wow, I really lost 6 years of my life for what? For what?
Well, this is exactly what they mean, my friend, when they say that the pen is sharper than the sword, right? Because with that pen, you have the ability to manipulate people, and that's where we'll get into the crux of things. But so then they got the picture of you up here at the bat. But let me share a story about that, right? Because I have some experience in this, right? So um, my older brother used to hang out with some celeb types, and one of the individuals he hung out with while I was growing up, I think I was 14, 15 at the time, was Roman Hammerlick. Roman Hammerlick was a defensive player for the Tampa Bay Lightning at that time. And this was his buddy. Like, Roman's hanging out with us. You know what I mean? We're hanging out and he's going fishing with us, which is a whole nother story in itself. But one particular night, we're coming out of the game, and my brother and I are leaving from the players' exit. Now, when we're walking out, now Roman Hammerlick is a big deal. He's got all of these women waiting on him, and there's a whole crowd of people as we're walking out. And so he's just over here signing autographs, this and that. And I'm just over here being who I am, the young Thomas Freed at that time. I just like, no, I'm not signing no autographs as I'm walking down, right? So some guy, he's holding a kid, no lies, I promise you. He's holding a kid like this, and he's like, well, who the hell are you? I said, man, you don't recognize who I am? He's like, no. I'm like, I'm AMA Supercross champion. He's like, oh, okay, yeah. He's like, you want to sign my shirt? I said, yeah, man, I'll sign your shirt, even though I said I wasn't going to sign none. So I go over here and I get a Sharpie from Roman. I walk over and I sign my name, nobody else's name, my name on the back of his shirt. And the kid's like, this and that. But it was that feeling of like, wow. We go to his car, there's lipstick all over his car, there's phone numbers all over it. You know what I mean? Yeah, my father's watching. He says he got his autograph on a hockey stick. But it's that euphoria of acknowledgement.
For sure. For sure. Absolutely. And as we get into my crime and how it happened, why it happened, I always say, and I say this always on social media, there's always an underlying reason, right? Like, most people don't just roll out of bed like, hey, today I want to be a piece of shit, right? I'm going to go commit crime today. There's always an underlying reason, whether it be an addiction, a substance addiction, whatever. And I'll always say, I'm a gambling addict. That's something I deal with. But deeper than that, at the core of that, I'm addicted to two things, and it's competition and attention. And that came from baseball, and baseball fulfilled that, through age 22, 23, 24. So when I get that taste of what professional baseball is, and that attention, that level of attention, playing in front of 5, 6, 8,000 fans, kids wanting my autographs, that level of attention, when it gets stripped from me because of my injury, now I'm looking to replace that. Right. And what do I replace it with? And we'll get into it. That's just where I make bad decisions. I replace the competition with gambling, and I replace the attention with partying, drinking, night clubbing, chasing women, all the wrong things. But
Mm-hmm.
that's where it comes from. Right. And what do all those things cost? All those things take money. Right. And that's how the criminality aspect of it, really evolves.
That's right, and that's why those things are put in places to take advantage. I mean, these are key locations that these things are put in for a specific reason. You know what I mean? And yeah, so we'll get into that. But moving forward, now we get to meet Detective Brian McGovern. So how the article puts it up. The call that wakes Detective Brian McGovern in the early hours of October 11, 2013 seems at face value to be another instance of small-town criminal mundanity. Two addicts have been pulled over at around 1:15 a.m. in a gold Chevy Impala. A crack pipe is found in their armrest, and they fit the description of suspects in a string of property thefts from cars around the area. McGovern, a 38 buzz-cutted and chipper 13-year veteran of the force, is one of just two detectives in the police department in Canfield, Ohio, population of 7,284. So, any thoughts on that? The crack pipe, all of that. What is that? Was this just something that they threw in the
To the state of our country and how deep rooted the drug epidemic is, right? So I've sat here and I've said I've never used a drug a day in my life, not weed, not any. I've never been high in my life. But at the core of it, I go to prison over drug related activity. That's what brings, my operation down. So these two, April and John Blosser, they got pulled over, like the article says, for having a cracked front windshield. They have drug paraphernalia. They also have stolen credit cards. The stolen credit cards track to some Walmart gift cards. I came in possession of some of the Walmart gift cards, unbeknownst to me. I didn't know they were bought on stolen credit cards. I didn't get them from April or John Blosser. I've never met them. I don't know them. But once they get the credit cards, obviously they track it to the gift card. They track the gift card to Walmart, pull the surveillance footage, and they see me walking out of Walmart with $1,000 of, baseballs, footballs, basketballs, baseball bats, whatever piece of unsigned memorabilia I could buy from Walmart. And that's kind of where the investigation starts. And where the breadcrumbs start to kind of fall. So, but again, it's ironic enough that, being that I'm, so clean in the drug side of it, never been high, but really my entire operation comes to a halt and I go to prison still over drug related activity.
Mm-hmm. Now, see, the detective in me goes right to the question as to how does somebody get pulled over with a cracked windshield and they find a crack pipe in the car? How did that transition? Because you don't have rights to search and seizure on a cracked windshield. So I mean that automatically goes, but that, again, that's the analytical side of mass. But
yeah, right. And obviously I don't have any of those answers. Like I said, I don't even know these people. But an interesting part of the story is that this April and John Blosser, and this is kind of comes into, how this case was mishandled. They got off. They didn't get any charges, not for the drug paraphernalia, not for the stolen credit cards. I was forced to plead guilty for the stolen credit cards, right? So I've never met these people. They're not part of my organization. They tried to tell me that I hired them to steal credit cards, which is ludicrous. I was literally printing money, basically hand over fist out of my bedroom. Why would I hire some drug addicts to steal credit cards? Doesn't even make sense. But they walked scot-free. They didn't even get charged for that. They put that charge on me. So I have a identity theft, stolen credit card theft on my record.
So that's
from that incident.
Yeah. So that's what it says here. But then McGovern works for the detectives from 3 nearby towns, tracking surveillance footage of purchases eventually made with those gift cards, and a not at all typical patterns reveal itself that 2 different gift card users, the Craigslist buyer Stephen Durkin and another unidentified white male. Okay, never mind. Let me keep going. Each exit a Walmart store with a shopping cart full of footballs and baseballs, and a third man, Anthony Sattarelli,
correct, yes,
is stopped outside a separate Walmart in the same time frame for stealing a cart full of baseballs.
Yes. So those are the 2 incidences that cause everything. Is April and John Blosser getting pulled over with the cracked front windshield, and Anthony Sattarelli getting caught trying to steal baseballs from Walmart, which again, that wasn't an associate of mine, but one of my associates tried to hire him to steal baseballs, which what are we doing here? We're buying $2 baseballs and selling them for 50. Why are we trying to steal baseballs, right? But he gets caught, and sure enough, he points the finger back at my associate, and then, the rest kind of falls into place from there. So it's 2 drug-related incidences that get the finger pointed back at me.
Got it. Yep. So Sattarelli eventually tells investigators he was given $120 to steal the Walmart balls by C.J. McCormick. Wasn't that a show? C.J. McCormick. An associate of Duncan's, McCormick Sattarelli explains is involved in some kind of sports memorabilia business. McGovern is neither McGivern or McGovern.
McGivern.
Okay, it doesn't matter. And neither a sports fan nor a memorabilia expert. The lone autographed item in his Canfield office is a poster for a minor league hockey team. Okay. Then in January 2014, he gets a call from the FBI's Boardman, Ohio office. There's an agent up here who says he's working on a sports memorabilia case, the man says. Are you still doing something with that? Then they have a picture of these two guys with their guns out, their badges out, always. I don't understand that.
Yeah, super proud. This is their, 15 minutes of fame. So super proud.
I don't understand that. I mean, look at them. Why can't they smile? For first and foremost, why do they have to look like complete assholes? And why do they have to have their guns out? And you have one, the guy in the yellow shirt. I don't know who's who. Okay, so this is your guy in the yellow shirt on the left, Brian McGivern. He's got his hand on the gun. And a picture for Sports Illustrated.
Yeah, he's a real tough guy. He Canfield, Ohio was one of the top 100 cities in the U.S. a couple years back. So, this was his career-defining moment. So he's super proud about it.
That's what he looks like. He looks like he just caught a 15-foot shark, and he's standing in front of it. That's what he looks like right there in that picture.
It's too bad he's lost his career and his job. So that's tough for him.
Oh, tough for this guy. Sorry to hear that. So McGovern finds himself on the line with veteran FBI agent Anthony Sano. We're starting to ID some low-level guys, but we have this surveillance picture of a guy at Walmart, and we have no idea who he is. Sano sends an image to McGovern's phone, and they say, that's the guy. That's him rounding third base right there. That's him. Catch him.
And at this point in time, when they connect these dots, I'm already gone. They're looking in Northeast Ohio for this ringleader of this operation, and I had moved. I was in Las Vegas, Nevada. I was out of Dodge. Arguably, if April and John Blosser don't get pulled over with these credit cards, I'm not sitting here with you today.
Mm-hmm. And I got a comment from one of my good listeners. It said Hardcastle McCormick was the show. That's right. Hardcastle McCormick. That's what I was thinking. I knew there was a show, McCormick. That's the target of our investigation, says Sano, who at this point is working off of a vague tip that someone is selling fake signed sporting goods out of Austintown, Ohio, and that someone played Farm League baseball. Then they put the photo is one of Clifton J. Panezich. Got some nice cards in there, though. Now, these cards that they're showing, are these cards that you signed?
Yeah, these are 8x10 photos I signed.
Photos, okay. So these are photos.
That's accurate.
So it all started, Panezich will eventually say, with a working road trip, a 12-hour drive from Ohio to Tuscaloosa, Alabama in December 2009. But that was a hell of a month for me, boy. Let me tell you that. 2009 in December. Okay. What was I going through hell? And you're on a bus going to Tuscaloosa. Panezich and Adam Bollinger, a Chick-fil-A truck driver whom Panezich met while chasing autographs outside of hotels and stadiums across Cleveland, had agreed to split the cost of an expedition to Alabama, where the number one ranked Crimson Tide football team was preparing to play in the BCS National Championship game against Texas. So Panezich's sole source of income at the time was a legit autograph business on eBay that he called Athletic Connections Sports Memorabilia, and he knew that the Tide items were in high demand. So you actually had a legit business on eBay doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So what people don't understand is, on the surface, while I'm playing professional baseball, playing minor league ball, even in college, in professional baseball, yeah, I made $1,000 a month and I had other expenses covered or whatever, right? But I only get paid in season, right? So what am I doing the other, 7-8 months of the year? Well, if I want to progress in my career, right, I got to be in training. I got a hitting instructor. I got a personal trainer. I got a gym membership, a baseball facility membership. Plus, I'm at those facilities 5, 6, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, right? That is my job. I'm trying to progress uh, in professional baseball. That's my job. So how do you survive, right? So it was a legitimate side hustle, on the weekends, selling the stuff at night on eBay, and it was all legitimate for many, many, many years. And that's how I survived through college. That's how I survived through the couple years of professional baseball I played because I wasn't making enough money playing baseball to survive. It was a net loss. Playing professional sports, unless you get to the utmost level, is a net loss for every individual, for every family. There's no way around it.
Now, in 2008, you tried out with the Phillies. You worked out with the Phillies, right?
No, no, that's not correct.
Uh
No,
huh.
I had a workout schedule, a one-on-one workout schedule with the Phillies that I passed on because I had to have shoulder surgery, which was kind of the beginning of the end of my career. But yeah, I was supposed to work out for them, and they were definitely interested in signing me. They saw me play in Ottawa my rookie season in the Can-Am League, and they like I said, they were interested, and unfortunately, in the off season, I find out, uh, pretty much my shoulders mangled.
Mm. Yeah. Two partial tears in his rotator cuff and one in the labrum. So what does that mean? How first? How did that happen? And if you know, or was this just overuse of your arm? And more importantly, like how what was your thought process at this time where you know that this is something that no team is really going to kind of touch?
Well, it was definitely an overuse issue. It was just over time, right? But that, you dig a little bit deeper, and it alludes to the fact of, the problem in, lower level baseball, whether it be little league, high school, even college. I was a good enough player, a high enough level player, um, that coaches and instructors didn't worry about me. They were kind of like, "Hey, you throw hard, do your thing," right? No one's giving me any type of instruction. I'm just better than everybody. So mechanically, I was very flawed in my throwing motion, and
Mm.
that's what ends up causing my injury. So at the core of it, there's just not enough good coaching. Period. And they just kind of hung me out to dry because I was a good enough player. Um, and like I said, it was just overuse. I knew I had something wrong with my shoulder my senior season of college because I played on 3 cortisone shots, which I'm sure caused more damage. But I went and saw a doctor at the beginning of the season. He kind of knew what it was. He said we needed to get an MRI. I kind of told him like, hey, if we find out something's wrong, my career is over anyway. So just kind of make it stop hurting, and I'll deal with it afterward, right? And
Hmm.
that's what happened. I got through the season. I had a huge year as a college player. Had a huge rookie season. By the end of the year, when the cortisone wore off, I couldn't lift my shoulder above my head. I knew it was bad. Uh, but even going into it, my surgeon pretty much assured me that I would come back full strength. So in my mind, I'm not even like, hey, no team's gonna touch me. I'm still, chipper, ready to attack the rehab. I was 2 days out of surgery, in the gym on the stationary bike at my hitting facility, hitting with one hand. Like 2 days out of surgery, I'm doing everything I can to get back as quick as possible. Um, but that's just not the reality of it. Is that's not how the human body works,
Hmm.
and I just never recovered from it.
Now you played catcher, right?
Yes, I was a catcher.
So how did you? So what was your throwing motion? More side to the side?
No, so the flaw with my mechanic was I cross stepped. I wasn't square in my bottom half.
Hmm.
So I just put a lot of torque on my shoulder. Typically most throwing injuries come in the elbow area
Tommy
from.
John.
Yeah, right. So from throwing sidearm or whatever, but that wasn't mine. Mine was I cross stepped, and I threw too hard to cross step, and I was putting too much strain on my shoulder to where, eventually, your body's not made for that.
It popped. Yeah. So going because this is the some of the things that I want to really get into is like you said, where where in your age did people really kind of start to notice that you were different?
It's I wouldn't say like my entire life I was some big time prospect like projected to to make it to the league or anything. I was good for where I was from, you know. So I was one of the top players in little league, one of the top high school players. Uh, but that didn't transition into college right away. So I wasn't recruited by a lot of big schools, and coming out of college, I wasn't, you know, through my first 3 years of college, I pretty much had no professional aspirations. I mean, I did. I thought I could play, um, but probably not too many people around me thought I was going to make it into professional baseball, and I thrived off that. I thrive off being the underdog, being doubted. That's the same thing I do right now, right? Um, and that's transition. Um, but I was good enough at the lower levels to where, you know, I was one of the best players in the city, to where they're like, you know, hey, do your thing. You're throwing runners out at second base. You're hitting. Like, we don't need to instruct you. We don't need to coach you. Go do your thing.
You're winning.
Um, yeah, right, right. I'm pitching. I'm a pitcher, catcher, shortstop, hitting, throwing, whatever, and they just kind of let you be, and that's wrong.
Hmm.
That's wrong. But there's not enough. There's not enough coaching. There's not enough instruction to go around. There's
And
just
in
not.
in these small towns, especially up in Ohio, like this is all that they have. And here you have this young protege coming out that's doing phenomenal things. So, did you at any point ever feel like you may have been the highlight of the town?
Uh, Man, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I'd say high. I mean, Youngstown isn't a real small city,
Hmm.
but I would always say this. So, the way I treated baseball, even like in high school, was you know, the year is very cyclical, right? So during the spring, I'm the most well-known guy in my high school.
Hmm.
You know, a friend of everybody. Everybody's a fan. And the other 8 months of the year, I'm unknown, right? So it's very cyclical. So those spring months, yeah, I was one of the most well-known people in the city of Youngstown. The other 8 months that are behind the scene, while I'm in, you know, in their grinding, training, whatever, you're basically in obscurity. Nobody knows you. Nobody knows what goes on behind the scenes. Nobody knows how much time, effort, and finances it takes, or the strain that it puts on families. Which
Right.
it is. It's a financial strain for sure.
So going on, you find out about the injury. The article says it was depressing for Cliff. Says his mother. It's the first we hear about your mother, whose name is also Rose. My stepmother's name is Rose as well. Who believes it was even harder on her husband Frank, a former steel mill electrician who whose own pro ball aspirations were derailed first by a knee injury and then by his 1965 enlistment into Vietnam. Bless his heart. Shortly after high school, Frank thought he might live his baseball dream through Cliff. Then he had to give up on that too. Conveniently enough, they throw in there. But this is a picture of you and your father, and I have 1,000 of these as well because I also grew up uh, at the age of 5 playing t-ball and such, and my father, same pictures, would take me to the games, and I think a lot of pressure with my father was uh, now me being an adult and understanding how athletically gifted my DNA is, my body structure is. I think my father knew that as well. He was trying to implement that into his boys, and I think he saw something in me that I didn't see at the time. But of course, my father was my father, and he didn't know really how to bring that out of me. But I didn't really come into grips with how athletically inclined I was until I was in prison playing sports ball, and like, man, we were out here, we were playing serious ball in there. You know what I mean?
It's definitely serious in there.
It's definitely
It's for real.
serious.
It's
So
for real.
and at the time in the feds, they don't do it anymore, but we had an all-star team that would actually play outside teams that would come in, college teams and whatnot. That's how serious this was. So I have these pictures, and I, uh, at the mention of your father, I saw, a little something out of you. Your father did pass away in the midst of all of this that was going on. Rest in peace, and I'm sorry to hear that. But that really kind of adds to the stress level that this particular family was going through in the midst of this tumultuous time. Um, how bad did your father want you to succeed in baseball?
Yeah, I mean, growing up, athletics in general, baseball was that was me and his entire relationship. So we really had a contentious relationship probably until I got to college is when it started making sense how and why he pushed me as hard as he did, right? So growing up, like I said, it was very contentious. Um, we had so many battles on the baseball field, on the rides home, in the house afterward, that I can't even count. Very, very just I don't want to say toxic, but a very up and down relationship, and it was all revolved around athletics. Um, but as I grew older, as I progressed in my career, it all made sense, and then our relationship grew a lot more because I understood, what he saw and how he kind of pushed my buttons to get me there, right? And that necessarily wouldn't have worked with any kid. There we had problems. Other kids quitting because my father coached too hard and stuff like that, and but I was the one that made it, so it worked for me. Um, and it was tough for him. It probably took him longer to accept that I couldn't play anymore than it took for me, right? So I knew my body. I finally like mentally knew it was kind of over before he could really accept that. But it's a very mentally taxing thing when your body won't let you do what you are capable of, right? When your body starts to change and you're no longer capable of the same things, that's a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah. And how well, let me ask, did you want to be a baseball player as a kid, or was you just kind of told that this is what you were going to do?
Yeah, so I mean, I started at age 4, and this is a story my mom always tells. Is as at age 4, I stood in the outfield grass picking dandelions, throwing them up in the air, oblivious to what was going on in front of me. To where by age 5, there was a story where I was so excited for opening day of my little league season that I couldn't sleep. I got up in the middle of the night, got dressed in my entire uniform, and went to sleep with my glove, pants, stirrups on, everything. Because by age 5, I knew that's the only thing I wanted to do in life was play baseball. Um, so it made the transition quick, and once I got there, that's baseball is all that mattered, and everything that went along with it. Like I said, I got good grades in high school. I went to college, got a college degree, but all that was just a means to an end, right? That was just what I had to do to get on the field, and I didn't take any of it serious.
And I'm glad that you said that, because that was going to be my next question before we start breaking down the crime is how important was education versus the sport?
As a family, it's hard to say because if I was failing or slacking in school, like it probably would have became an issue with my family, with my mother specifically, right? But because I'm going to school, school came easy to me. I got good grades. I got good test scores. Actually, before I accepted my athletic scholarship, I enrolled at Hiram College in Ohio on a $120,000 academic full ride, and dropped out after 2 weeks because I didn't they didn't to me the school didn't take baseball serious enough, and so that wasn't a place for me. So I forewent over $100,000 academic scholarship. So
Mm.
school and class just came easy to me. So it's hard to say if I slacked, if I was failing or anything. I probably wouldn't have went the way it did with my family. But because I did the way I did, we just everybody, my mom, my dad, everybody just pushed sports, specifically baseball.
So now you guys, you and Bollinger get in Tuscaloosa, right? And the first member of the Crimson Tide that you guys encounter and asked to sign is cornerback Marquise Johnson. I'm not familiar with that. Is he in the NFL now?
He spent a couple years in the NFL, not any longer.
Got it. So the two collectors had 40 odd white paneled footballs each, emblazoned with the Alabama's logo laid out in the rear bed of their SUV, and Johnson signed a few. He talked about getting paid to do the rest. We paid him up front, and he recruited everybody else to come and sign. He'd go into the dorm, grab a couple guys, $20, $30, $40, depending on who the player was, and they'd all come sign 40 team items. So there's an actual video that they have here.
When it
Yeah, so
comes to
what's
paying
funny
bills,
is
you
for the
don't want to
writing
be
of this
fashionably
article
late.
way
If you
back
bank
then,
with Mid-Florida, you can get paid up to
Marquise
2 days
Johnson
early.
denies knowing
No
who me or Adam
gotchas, no
was,
big bank
but I'm
bull.
pretty sure to this day he's
Mid-Florida,
actually
your
still
life, your money,
on my
your
Facebook
credit
list as a
union.
friend, but he denies knowing who I am. So funny enough,
Got it. So
But just to touch on, times have changed now, and now college players can accept money for things like this. Um, but what they did to me was not wrong. These guys taking money for their autograph. A lot of the guys that came and signed these baseballs, when we would pay them 20, 40, $50, they just took it as like, hey, I can go get something to eat tonight, or hey, I can take my girl to the movies, or something like that. So to me, what they were doing was not wrong. But at that point in time, the NCAA for sure would have frowned on it, and they could have been in serious trouble, which is also kind of mind-boggling.
well, this is how we get a Jameis Winston who's stealing crab legs, and gets caught on camera and ridiculed for it. And now, this of course now he never has to steal crab legs again. But that this is the issue, and how much money did FSU make off Jameis Winston?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And times have changed now, and now there's the NIL deals, the name, image, likeness deals, and that's put an end to that. But you're right. Same thing with the tattoo scam with Ohio State and Terrell Pryor.
Right.
The same thing with Johnny Manziel, which, that's kind of a joke. He got suspended for one half of one game
Yeah.
for taking money for an autograph signing in Miami. But part of that money was mine. I had something to do with that autograph signing in Miami.
Really?
Um, absolutely, absolutely. That was a group of guys that I had contact with. Um, but there's nothing wrong with that. Like, why should these guys not be making money? Like you said, Florida State was making how much?
Billions.
100 million off of Jameis Winston. He should be able to eat crab legs whatever night of the week that he wants.
Right. He shouldn't have to go be stealing crab legs. So Panezich says Johnson was paid roughly $200, but not everyone took money. Defensive tackle Terrence Cody, which I know that name, was probably the biggest. Who's he play for now? I know he's in there still.
No,
right?
so he played for the Baltimore Ravens. He got in some legal trouble as well, though.
Got it. Okay. He got paid to sign all the team stuff, and then we heard he was interested in making some more money. So he came out, signed a bunch of mini helmets that he inscribed like 2 times All-American, 2 blocked field goals against Tennessee, very specific stuff. And you ended up paying around $400 in total. The video that we just watched, cornerback. Now, was that the cornerback Rod Woodson from the Steelers?
No.
Okay.
No relation, as it turns out.
Got it. Okay. Here's a picture of Cody, Terrence Cody. I remember that shot. So now, although it took Panezich and Bollinger nearly a week to gather the signatures they wanted, Panezich says they shelled out more than $1,000 to players. So you put out $1,000 of your own cash to get these signatures on this autograph stuff. And then I think what it goes on to say is what the kick to the groin was, as you get back and you find that people are already doing this on eBay.
So let me just give the truth to the story, because this is not the truth now.
Got it.
Really, absolutely, the whole Operation Stolen Base crime starts at this point in time. So we're down there in Alabama. There's some specific key players we weren't able to find. Mark Ingram, Julio Jones, Rolando McClain are the 3 biggest ones. And the scheme really is devised in a hotel room in Tuscaloosa, where it wasn't actually me. It wasn't me. It was Adam. Picked up the Sharpie. It was pretty much like, hey, if I throw the rest of the names on these balls, like, let's get out of here. And that's how it started. It started with him. He signed the rest of the team balls, like filled in the players that we were missing. And then, once you cross that threshold, there's really no turning back at that point. So on the way back home, on the drive, we kind of devised a plan to sign and sell all of our remaining memorabilia. every trip you go on through the season, you have leftover pieces here and there, mini helmets, footballs, jerseys, whatever it may be. And that's where it started. Adam signed all of it. I sold all of it.
But what was that? What was that discussion right there, Cliff, between Adam and y'all? Was it just something? Hey, man, let me just sign the rest of these balls, and everybody's like, okay, let's do it. Or was it like, hey, man, what we're doing now is like,
Yeah, I mean, really, it was just, so I knew the nature of the autograph industry, right? I know there's guys sitting at home signing the stuff, making money, and I just never crossed that threshold. Um, and this trip was kind of the kicker. We were down there a handful of days. It's about to be Christmas. We both want to leave, get home. Like Tuscaloosa isn't the most happening city in the country, right? We're just kind of holed up in a hotel room, spending money, chasing down these kids. And he wants to leave. I want to stay. I'm like, I don't want to leave until we get these players, because to me these balls are worthless without the three key players off the team. And that's at the point in time where he's like, what if I just do them? Like, shit, let's go then. Let's
yeah,
go. I'm ready to get home too. I'm tired of spending money. And the true part of it is while we're down there, there are Alabama team signed balls popping up on eBay that are selling for large amounts of money. And we're down there. There's no one down there. So where are they coming from? Right? There's no one down there but us. So I know what it is. And that was a sour moment for it. And that's kind of what turned the tide, what caused me to cross the threshold.
Now, Bollinger goes uncharged in the case and tells SI that he never, in fact, forged autographs at all.
Yeah, sounds like a good story.
Either way, by February 2010, Panezich had discovered he could passably sign and sell his own items. His first forged signatures mimic players from the 2009-10 Kentucky basketball team. Panezich had once been kicked off UK's campus while hunting, in parentheses, free, John Wall autographs. Now, Panezich could print as many 8x10s of Wall as he wanted, sign them, and sell them on eBay for at least $50 a piece. So all of that is true? That's
yeah, absolutely, all true. Yeah. So
once that ribbon was cut, you guys just took off.
Yeah. So like I said, me and Adam had an arrangement for a little bit. That kind of dissipated. I figured out I could do it on my own. Beginning of stages, it was difficult. It was hard. Practice. Sign one photo. That's not what it evolved into. It evolved into, to me, it's very simple to this day. I probably have 300 signatures I could do off the top of my head sitting here right now, which is kind of crazy. But it definitely started with Kentucky basketball. That was the hottest team, hottest items at the moment. And like I said, once I crossed the threshold, it's kind of like no turning back. You get addicted to how easy it is. But it wasn't full go, so I still ran, the legitimate part of the business. I was still going out there getting autographs. Just what changed is, I would go somewhere, get an autograph of whatever. Say I would go to Baltimore and get a Ray Lewis autograph. I would take a picture of him signing the autograph, and then poof, I'd have 10 of them. That's really how it went. So
right. Okay. So you come home after the Pecos Leagues game. You and your roommate would have stacks of items waiting for you to sign with names like Mike Trout and Bryce Harper. So they were going out and getting these actual signatures, bringing them back for you to mimic.
No. So at this point in time, the operation was so deep that I was still trying to resurrect my career. I played in 2012 in Houston, Texas, and then eventually New Mexico. That I had two of my associates travel with me while I was going to play so they could run the operation. And they would go out and they would buy baseballs, print photos, buy baseball bats, whatever, while I'm out at practice, out at a game, and have it lined up for me to sign when I got back, and they turn around and sell it the next day. And that's how I paid. That's really how I supported myself to play baseball that final season, because that final season definitely was a net loss. I wasn't getting paid. I was getting paid $50 a week, and paying for a hotel room, while fans are watching me play baseball in my final season, paying to watch me play. So that's the state of low level professional baseball. That's all a scam and a hustle too, to be completely honest.
So now the viewers are looking at a picture of the two detectives in a sports room of memorabilia holding footballs and baseballs. And then I see a signed Tebow jersey there on
Yeah,
the
that's also
number.
that's also probably the most athletic thing either one of them have ever done is hold that baseball bat and football in the picture. So,
And then I think I
um,
see over there Jared McCoy. Is that Jared McCoy, number 12?
There's Colt McCoy over there. I
Okay,
think I
Colt
see
McCoy.
yeah, Percy Harvin, Peyton Manning, Tim Tebow. But it didn't matter. I could do anybody. I did anybody, sold anybody, movie actresses, musicians, whatever sold at the time. So
Oh, so you even got outside of the sports and moved into the entertainment and whatnot. Whatever
whatever,
sold.
whatever sold, whatever sold. A new Avengers movie would come out, and I'd have a poster with the whole cast and crew on it. So whatever was hot at that moment, it didn't matter.
So you got your mom involved in this, um, essentially just by explaining to her about this package deal, her just dealing with the packages or whatnot, and then somewhere along the lines, I think you mentioned here in the article that you don't know when, but you knew that she kind of knew what was going on, but was just trying to help her son.
Yeah, and this isn't to rationalize why it happened, right? Um, but my mother was the caretaker for both my grandmother and my father. My father was in bad health, as the article discusses. My grandmother was in her 90s, and she was the caretaker for both of them from probably 2006 ish, through both of them passing in 2016 and 2017. Um, and that was like her full time job. So this was my way of allowing her to not have to go out and work. She was a manager at Walmart. She didn't have to go back to work. She stayed home. She helped me with things I need done, such as the shipping on this operation, and was able to stay home and be a full time caretaker. So again, that's not to rationalize why I did it. Obviously, I went about it in the wrong ways, made the wrong decisions, but that was a way for me to provide for the family, to where they could be taken care of.
Mm. Was that like a dream of yours? That man, when I make it to the big leagues, I'm gonna buy mama a house and all of these things.
Oh, I mean, of course, growing up, that's a dream. You see pretty early on in professional baseball though what it is, and it's man, it doesn't just take talent; it takes luck to get that far, to get one of those type of contracts and everything. So, um, like I said, once I lost my career, I lost a lot of my purpose. And once I fell into this, and money's kind of rolling in, this was a way for me to provide for the family, and provide an opportunity, really not even so much for my mom as it was an opportunity for my father and my grandmother to be taken care of.
Hmm. So one of McCormick's ex-girlfriends, who will not be implicated in the case, details for investigators how Panezich recruited McCormick into the business. She says that she has witnessed Panezich forging items, calls him an expert, and says that together the two men have sold items through scores of eBay accounts they created using the names of friends, relatives, and acquaintances. An aunt of Panezich, who has not been implicated, also calls the police. eBay has mailed to her a tax form that references $64,000 in profit she says she knows nothing about. In February, she provides investigators with a ball inscribed with what appears to be Mike Trout's autograph that a buyer mailed to her intended as a return. Fact or fiction?
Mostly fact, aside from the part that she had no knowledge of what was going on. She was completely complicit in the operation. She made money off the operation. So that's all completely fabricated. And as it says, she went uncharged, faced no criminal prosecution because, she basically outed me in a lot of instances. But, her involvement was she knew what the situation was. She knew what I was doing. And as the article says, we always needed new eBay accounts, new names, email addresses, addresses. You could only, an eBay account would go bad after so long.
Mm-hmm.
And she would come to me with her friends' names, her name, her son's name, and ask me if I would use their names so they could make some money, so she could make some money. And I didn't even need them. I didn't need her names at this point in time. We knew how to make eBay accounts in fake names with track phones and fake addresses and fake email addresses and the whole 9 yards. I didn't need her names, but I did it because she asked me as a favor. And she made money and her friends made money. And then, as you can see the article, she turns around and is one of the people that's, a cooperating witness.
Well, of course, because in reality, at this point, everybody already sees you're the fall guy, and everybody's just trying to put theirs into your cup. So they're just trying to get the hell out of this mess, you know. And then now you have, but it isn't until investigators subpoena eBay for access to any account whose profits flow to Panezich. McCormick or Jason Lindsay, a former high school acquaintance who works for Huntington Bank, where 26 PayPal-funded accounts have been opened in either Cliff or Rose's name, that the magnitude of things takes shape. By November 2014, investigators had discovered that more than $1 million in eBay sales to 16,000 plus potential victims across the U.S., Mexico, and Canada, and they believe that there's plenty left to find. Fact or fiction?
Basically fact. Yeah, fact for sure.
So over $1 million in sales.
Yeah, I mean it was more than that as we get into the article. I think the number they finally put on it is like 2.5 million total. But what they don't say, is they don't break that number down. They just kind of want to say I made $2.5 million, right? Which is not the case. That's across 20 different people in the operation. That's counting the cost of product, the money eBay took, the money the shipping companies took. I'll step out there and say I probably made $700,000 to $800,000 over 5 years, right? Which is a lot. It's significant. It's a lot of money. But when they came and raided my house, they're asking me like where the stacks of cash are, and they're gonna rip out the walls to find the money. Like what are you talking about? I'm making $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 a month. I have $8,000 in bills, and I'm a degenerate gambler living in Las Vegas that goes out and parties every night. So what money are you talking about? I'm spending the money as quick as I'm making the money at this point in time. So funny part is, and it's Brian McGivern that would always say this. He said this multiple times. He said if I wasn't such a degenerate, I could have had a big chunk of money saved up. For who?
Yeah.
A big chunk of money for who? They'd have came and swooped in and taken all that. It would have been a big chunk of money for them.
Yeah, well, exactly. And that's what they were hoping to find, was a big stack of cash.
Absolutely.
So, let's see. From his Canfield office, McGivern monitors Panezich's increasingly audacious social media activity. Moving forward, here's some more pictures of these guys in front of their shark. I mean, look at this. Is ridiculous, man. These pictures.
Yeah, actually, I got a comment here, and I don't know how we came up on this one, but they asked if I gave a statement and I gave names, and just to touch on that real quick. I don't know how you can come up with that. I got 9 co-defendants, 7 of which got probation, 2 did 18 months, I did 6 years. So who gave up who, right? That's not true. That's not true.
Well, and a lot of people don't understand the process. They don't understand the process, and I think what they're probably referencing is a couple times in the article where I mentioned your cooperation with them and saying no, it wasn't me. This person is the first one that actually did it, and such.
Right.
Just before 8 a.m. on December 1st, 2014, one FBI agent, 2 police officers from Canfield, and 11 from Henderson, Nevada Police Department surround a Spanish tile roof rental house in Henderson subdivision. There is a little expectation of danger, but McGivern's anxiety level is off the charts. I mean, look at these pictures. I promise you his anxiety level was off the charts. If the search warrants that the investigative team are about to serve at this 2-story house on Sandhill Sage Road, as well as Panezich's parents' house nearby, plus Lindsay to McCormick, addresses in Ohio are dead ends, McGovern knows he'll never live it down. So now they come to you. A Henderson lieutenant peers into a street-facing garage window and starts to laugh. Talks about the piles of stuff you have in the garage. They knock on the door. You come wearing T-shirts and shorts. You remember that?
Yep, December 1st, 2014. Never forget it. Never forget it. So, yeah, I was actually at the time, it's crazy enough, I was having a little bit of a problem with one of my neighbors. And when my roommate came running up the stairs saying the police are at the front door, that's what I think this is. He fails to mention that when he looked out the peephole, it was like 11 police officers and FBI agents. He failed to mention that part of it. He just said the police were at the door. So, yeah, I opened the door and I immediately know what it is.
Yeah, me too. I knew what it was. As soon as they knocked on the door, I knew what it was. So what they find inside of the bachelor pad, a neon Miller Lite sign, pool table, golf clubs, hats, mail scattered about, and part memorabilia warehouse. Autographed items are littered everywhere, covering even the floor of Panezich's master bedroom. Blue Tim Tebow Florida jerseys, Spalding NBA basketballs bearing Kobe Bryant and LeBron James, and NCAA basketball with Wall's autograph, so on and so forth. Even a World Authentic memorabilia Barack Obama official Major League Baseball.
Yeah, absolutely. What they don't mention is, the lead up to this, and as I touched on, I was a big gambler out here in Las Vegas, and in late November, I went on my biggest sports betting run in my life. I made $110,000 in 10 days. But even so, that wasn't enough. But in my mind, I was like, let me take some of this money, invest it in this operation, run this out through Christmas, through the Super Bowl. And, maybe that's an end in sight, light at the end of the tunnel of how I can get out of what this operation is. So when they raided my house, they were actually disappointed with what they found. They expected to find more than what they found, more cash than what they found. But the reality of it is there was never more memorabilia in any one of my houses in any city ever than at this moment when they raided my house. This was the worst time ever, because of that money I had. I spent like $15,000 on unsigned memorabilia. What they won't tell you is that I bought another collector's entire collection for $20,000 of all authentic memorabilia. So when they raided my house, there was about $40,000 or $45,000 of authentic memorabilia that they'll never admit. They'll never admit it. But that's still in their storage facility, is like $40,000 of authentic, legitimate, true, like hand to God authentic memorabilia.
Interesting.
Right. But that's why the case doesn't go federal, because there were feds there when they raided my house. The FBI was there. So, but after that, I never hear from the FBI again. And what I've been told is that they weren't able to distinguish between what was real and what was fake. So that they really would have had a difficult time prosecuting the case, whereas the state steps in and they just said it was all fake. And to this day, what I pled guilty to was all of it being fake, which is not true, is not true. But, on the state level, they play a pretty shrewd game. They don't really play by the rules. And I had no outs, once they started leveraging my mother and everything. So, yeah, I ended up pleading guilty to it all being fake, but that's not true at all. At all.
So on the desk in his bedroom, police find metallic ink pens and Sharpie markers in clear plastic cups. They turn up text on Panezich's iPhone explicitly discussing forgery. They seize additional stacks of certificates of authenticity with phony business names like Game Day Sports Authentics that are being printed in-house, plus more than 30 burner cell phones with names written on their cheap black casings in yellow or purple ink. one of Panezich's assistant roommates in Henderson, Stephen Mulichak, tells police Mulichek
Yep.
tells police that eBay requires its accountants to be linked to a phone number. When anyone calls a phone attached a male name, Panezich answers. When anyone calls a female named phone, Rose, who also helps with shipping, answers. Let me ask you, how aware is eBay of these fraudulent schemes?
Oh, they're probably super aware. They just don't care as long as they're getting their 15%.
Right.
So,
and is there ever any repercussions or any insight into that? Like, does anybody ever, or do they just allow eBay to host fraudulent activity?
Yeah, basically, eBay's never going to be held accountable. Effectively, that's why there's no victims in my case. Is what I heard was that eBay quit cooperating once they realized the attention this case was getting. And obviously, the prosecution has the power to subpoena the records and get the names of victims. But once they had me in the crosshairs and had their guilty plea, legitimately they don't care about the victims. They cared about their news story, and that's why eBay faces no repercussion, arguably, of the entire operation. If they say it was $2.5 million, eBay would have about $375,000 that could be paid back to the victims. But that was never pursued. Because again, it's not about the victims, it's about a news story, which is what this got turned into.
Right. That's a good point.
Right.
So go ahead.
Yeah, well, because they say Brian, this is Brian again, Detective McGivern, always claimed that they never sought restitution because I didn't have any money. There was no restitution to be had, which the system well enough to know that's never stopped the government before, right? They would have garnished my wages till the day I died if they wanted restitution. But at the same time, eBay has plenty of money. And that would have been $375,000 of the alleged operation is eBay fees that they could have recovered. So why didn't they? Because it doesn't matter. They don't care. It was just a media fiasco. And you can see by the pictures in the Sports Illustrated article what this was really about. These guys with their chests puffed out, hand on their gun, like they accomplished something, which, I mean, they did. This is the biggest moment in their life.
Right.
But it takes a special kind of individual to relish in somebody's downfall. This whole case, this whole crime could have went, the prosecution could have went way differently. But I always took it as personal. And it's not supposed to be personal. It's supposed to be based on facts and the truth and rational, reasonable punishment. And it wasn't. It wasn't. It was just based on it being personal. The prosecutor called me a son of a bitch in the middle of the courtroom for no reason. I'm not even speaking in court because I have a paid attorney, and I'm getting called a son of a bitch. I mean, that tells you all you need to know, that the prosecution was personal in this case. And I still don't know why to this day.
Yeah. What McGovern's search team does not find is much in the way of money. Authorities do seize $18,200 rubber banded inside a zippered envelope under a guest room mattress, but Beltrame claims that belongs to him. This is surprising given the volume of eBay transactions and the fact that Operation Stolen Base has turned up in 2 Nevada bank accounts under Rose's name that received $174,531.97 in PayPal profits before being cashed out. And here's a picture of Rose, and I'm guessing her attorney.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. So that's that's accurate. And again, I'm not going to dispute the amount of money I made. Which like I said, it was probably profits, 700,000-800,000. But that's over a course of 5 years, so how far does that go? That's not to diminish how much money it was. But again, I was addicted to the things I was addicted to, which was gambling, partying, drinking, going out. So how far does that get you living in Las Vegas? I was spending it as I was making it. So there was nothing to be had. And that $18,000, was what I already alluded to. James Beltrami was the collector whose collection I bought. and he had delivered it to my house, and I paid him in cash. And they actually had no right to that $18,000 because James is not implicated in this case, and they forced me to forfeit that cash. So in my forfeiture specification, I had to forfeit $18,000 found in my house, even though it wasn't mine. And James really had a claim to that money, but because of the threat of prosecution, basically they threatened him as an accomplice, even though he wasn't. He backed off, and they keep $18,000. And that $18,000 went directly to both departments, the Mahoning County Prosecutor's Office and the Canfield Police Office.
What do you mean? It didn't go to your restitution?
I don't have restitution.
Oh,
Again, there's no. Again, there's no.
that's right,
victims,
because they didn't. Right. Okay.
right. So because there's no restitution, where does that money go?
Right. Where does that money go?
Right, to the offices, to the police department.
So we skip ahead now. Now you're sitting in the office with Mahoning County's assistant DA, and he says, "I'm curious." His name is Desmond, Martin Desmond. So he says, "I'm curious." He wants to see how good you are, and he asks you to sign a name. You tell him, say one. He says LeBron. You say number, no number. He says number. 6 or 23. Do both. Panezich signs 2 variations. One the way James signed it during his first stint with the Cavs. The other way he did it when he was with the Heat. And one of the Ohio policemen at the table fires up his iPad and finds a real LeBron, and they compare it with Panezich's work. And to them, it's difficult to tell apart. Then I have a picture of, again, more, just a whole room full of stuff. Now, all of this stuff is what you went through. I got
Correct. So
basketballs, yeah.
Yeah. So like I said, we signed everything. Everything was on the table, whatever is hot at the time. But pictured in that picture right there is a whole lot of authentic memorabilia, a whole lot. But they'll never tell you that. They'll never admit to that, because as soon as they admit that I sold any authentic memorabilia, the whole case,
Mhm.
the whole case is fraudulent, basically. Because like I said, they made me plead guilty to every transaction being fraudulent, which is not true. So that admission will never happen.
So you plead guilty to one first degree, 3 second degree, and 4 third degree felonies ranging from telecommunications fraud to money laundering, and he's agreed to a sentencing recommendation of 3 to 7 years. Over dinner, Panezich tries to explain how his mother got involved. Initially, he says, which you went into explaining, how she got involved. So you sign this plea, and now you're going to prison. Here's a picture of you now in prison garb. How prepared were you?
I mean, so like we already talked about, mentally it probably wasn't even real yet. So, my plea was based a lot off of my father's health condition. And a lot of these stories are going to come out in other projects I have going on. But, the way they got me to plead guilty, and again, it's not because I'm not guilty of conduct, right? But when you look at my charges, I'm not guilty of at least 4 of those felonies. They just get thrown in there to leverage my plea. They locked my mother up on a fabricated probation violation. She got probation on the case, as she deserved, because there were other people making way more money than she ever made on the operation that got probation. They basically fabricated a probation violation against her, saying that she refused to cooperate, which is not true. She showed up to testify in my grand jury, which she was required to do. And instead of letting her testify, they just violated her probation, threw her in county jail, rescheduled her probation violation, her PV hearing, but never set a new date. So basically she was held as a hostage, I would say, with never going in front of the judge. And they went to her and told her she wasn't getting out of jail unless I pled guilty. The actual quote that Martin Desmond said to my mom is that you're not getting out of jail to go take care of your dying husband unless your son pleads guilty. And I have that on audio recording, and that's going to come out at a later time. It's disgusting that I can't get that admitted into evidence in the court because they cover up for each other. But that's how they get my guilty plea, is because of my dad's health. So while I'm out awaiting sentencing, I spent 75 days in ICU, basically watching my father succumb to death, and then I get sentenced 15 days later. So it's a very surreal moment in time that the reality of what was going on probably doesn't even fully set in, right? And maybe it's possibly for the better mentally that I didn't really have time to process what was about to happen or what was going on. I just kind of was sleepwalking through each day, because I'm dealing with the residual effect of losing my father. But on the flip side, I'm still dealing with that effect, because how do you mourn the loss of a parent while you're also in prison, effectively fighting for your life? Not fighting physically, because like I said, my time was smooth, but mentally, it's a daily battle.
Absolutely. I mean, I was in an institution where an individual was waiting on his family to come visit. There was several instances on this, but the whole family was tragically killed on the way to the prison in a horrific car accident. And here we're in the dorm. This guy, he's waiting on his visit. Don't know why visit isn't coming. The whole day goes through. Then finally, the chaplain comes later that night, comes to his door and tells him, "I'm sorry, but your family was killed in an accident on the way down here to visit you." This is the news that he gets in his cell through a door from a chaplain. No hug, no empathy, no nothing like that. But so why, Cliff, are you now doing what it is that you're doing? There's a couple comments, and one of them states, "I'm confused. It sounds like tonight's guest feels like he should not have done 6 years for defrauding individuals."
Well, let me touch on that real quick.
Go
Let me
ahead.
touch on that, because there is precedence in this, right? There's other cases that have been prosecuted for a way larger dollar amount than what I was allegedly found guilty of. And nobody in history for sports memorabilia fraud ever did 6 years. Nobody in history for sports memorabilia fraud ever did 3 years. Nobody for sports memorabilia fraud ever got prosecuted on the state level or for racketeering. Every instance that ever happened, it was on the Fed level for mail fraud. And if I get prosecuted on the Fed level, I go serve my year and a half, 2 years. And like I said, this story is being told a lot different because that's a fair punishment. The other side of it is people don't understand the difference between what my prison sentence was, my time in prison, whereas if I would have went federal or state, right? If I got charged federally, I would have went to a white collar Fed camp.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
My time would have looked like the shit you see on Wolf of Wall Street with Jordan Belfort out there playing tennis and playing golf. And that's what my time would have looked like. On the state level, there's no separation of crime. Right. So I'm in there with the heinous, hardened criminals that deserve to be there. The rapists, the murderers, the gangbangers. I'm in there with them. And again, my time was smooth, but mentally, there's residual effect to that.
Absolutely.
Right. There's absolutely residual effect to doing time with murderers and rapists and killers than there is doing time with tax evaders, embezzlers, money launderers. There's a difference.
Yes,
But
there is.
Prosecutors don't see it that way. They don't care. It's not even that they don't see it that way. They just don't care. So did I deserve time? Absolutely. And my time did me some good, but it didn't take me 6 years to figure out what I was doing wrong in life, what my purpose was, and what I needed to do going forward.
Amen to that. Another question, did any of his associates go to prison with him, or was he the only one who went down for this?
So there's there's 9 of us that got charged.
And I have the tree up, this tree that they have.
Oh, yep. Okay. So what, 2, 4, 6, 7. You're right. There's 10 of us that got charged. 3 of us went to prison. They got sentenced to 3 years. They both got out after 18 months. I got 6 years. I served every day of my 6 years. So let me touch on that real quick because, them getting their 3 years, was kind of a hoax to me, right? They got 3 years, so they could give me double 6 years, but they both got out in 18 months while having institutional drug infractions. I get out after 6 years. I served every day of mine. They denied my early release. And really the only infraction I had in prison was I got an infraction for having my COVID mask pulled down over my chin, and that's why I had my early release denied. While they got theirs approved for while having drug infractions. So their 3 years was just a hoax to justify giving me the 6. But in reality, they did 18 months, and arguably, if they gave me 36 months, again, this story's different. I probably would have did my time, and that would have been a fair punishment.
Amen. So I have a couple comments here. I'm gonna wrap up with a couple of these comments, and then we'll just dialogue on that a little bit, and then have some closing statements. But my stepmother, Rose, she says, after hearing this story, I do not believe I will ever buy any sports memorabilia again. Another commenter says, I will have to go to a signing day. Oh, Miss Yvette Harvey says, I will have to go to a signing day or catch someone at a game. And then Rose continues and says, I have never been interested in sports memorabilia. However, my husband has, my father, and has a few real legitimate items here from the sports people over the years. How do people know that it's real or not real?
They don't. So the nature of the industry is to the point where if I don't physically see something signed by my own eyes, I don't believe it to be authentic. So yeah, I got caught for what I did through eBay. But there's people at every levels operating behind a veil of secrecy in these big companies, such as James Spence Authentication, Panini, and they're doing the same thing, but they're just operating, behind the veil of their company, and basically just a blinded sports memorabilia market. So yeah, unless I saw something with my own two eyes, I'd never believe it to be authentic.
Final comment from Miss Yvette Harvey. Because of situations like this, proof is needed nowadays. How does that resonate with you?
As far as, again, about the industry, there's no, it's funny. They prosecuted my whole case with no proof, right? No handwriting analysis, no expert, no so-called expert, anything like that. It's all just hearsay. And all these companies operate under the same way. These authentication companies work under, hearsay and their opinion. But I know their opinion is trash because I've watched them authenticate my forged memorabilia, right? But they get away with that. And to me, they're the ones that have really ruined the industry because they use their name and their reputation and slap their approval on fraudulent items to make a buck while operating, within the realms of legality in the system. And they're the ones running the whole industry. And the industry can't be fixed. It's too far gone.
With me, it took me many years, Cliff, right? Because for the first, I don't know, 8 years of my incarceration, man, I was so angry that one, I was taking it out. It was free reign on child molesters that came in the system. And so I was taking a lot of that anger out on these human beings, which made me even feel worse in the end. But I was constantly like blaming the people that testified. These were my homeboys. Like, how could they pull up on the stand against me that I've never seen before in my life? And they knew that they were lying. They knew what they were doing. I was charged for conspiracy, right? Which means that they don't have anything on you. Conspiracy is the thought of doing something, essentially, right? They had nothing against me, no evidence of whatever, and they gave me damn near 20 years off that, right? So I spent a lot of many years on trying to, one, figure out how and why this happened to me, because I spent my life before going to prison, thinking that God understood my plight and that he had my back, in my twisted way of committing these crimes. I was a drug dealer. I was a dope boy. I was selling crack to American citizens in my neighborhood, right? And I never saw anything wrong with that because at the end of the day, I'm trying to eat and I can't get a job. I can't do none of the things because I mean, I was being arrested at 14 years old because of the decisions I was making at that young age. So my life was already roadblocked in many sense that I didn't know how to maneuver into my adulthood. But at the end of the day, man, I just had to come to the realization that this was just meant for me to endure, and that my actions and my thought process, my insecurities of self, allowed me to attract these type of humans around me. And at the time I knew that these people were no good, but I chose to overlook that because they made me feel good, or they were like suiting a need at that time. So it was me understanding within me that I had a void within me that I was trying to fill by imitating certain things, selling drugs, poison to American citizens, really just living off other people's misery, and taking advantage of their downfalls or ignorance of such. And that is when I realized all the toxicity that was coming in my life because of this thought pattern. And that is why I'm out doing what I'm doing now, to get people to understand that we get wrapped up in this stuff so quickly, and because we have these dreams as children or whatever that society puts in our heads, we get marketed for this stuff. We're marketed to, especially children in the poor communities. Young black children are being marketed to for their athletic ability, and it puts such pressure on our parents to push us in a direction that that child may not even want to go in. And then when that doesn't go through, like in your instance, there was no other education as far as life skills. Okay, if baseball don't go through, then I'm going to follow with being a doctor or attorney or anything of that nature. We're left with, what do we do now? And these sports agencies that know that they're marketing to our children, they don't do anything for these individuals who don't make it, but has dedicated their life, especially in the case of an injury like you. There's nothing, no kind of insurance put in place for these kids who get up to 21, 22 years old and maybe injure themselves and have nowhere to go. And the sports world just kind of hey, tough luck. Sorry about it. Sorry you dedicated your life to try to get here. Maybe you should have had a better trainer, you know?
Absolutely. So, something I want to backtrack a little bit on a little bit of something you were touching on is, and I speak about the guys on my case a little bit, and the prosecutor and the detective. And obviously, I feel the case was mishandled, right? It was prosecuted in a way it shouldn't have been. But for me, the reality of it is I accepted that I put myself in that position for them to handle it that way, right? So I came out of prison, with no bitterness towards these guys. Most of them have hit me up since I've been out, and my co-defendants, and I don't have anything for them, and they'll never be in my circle of people again. But I hold no animosity towards them. I really hold no animosity towards the detective or the prosecutor either. How they prosecuted the case falls on them. Their misdoings. And karma comes around for them in different ways. They both lost their career, right? So it doesn't fall on me to be bitter towards them. The fact of the matter is that I put myself in that position for them to be able to do that, right? So did the prosecutor manipulate my mother, my father? Yes, but I caused the situation, and that was really an enlightening moment for me, because there's different levels of accepting responsibility, right? So me pleading guilty is accepting responsibility. But when I accepted the fact that I put myself in that position, my bitterness and animosity kind of went away, and I started to see, what my purpose is. That doesn't mean I'm not going to talk about it. I'm not going to talk about the misjustice and how they handled it, because that affects other people, and things like that need talked about, needs uncovered, needs eyes put on, because this is what happens to a lot of people. But I really saw my purpose, and my purpose is telling my story for a couple reasons, like you talked about. One, it's a cautionary tale. I had no backup plan aside from baseball. It doesn't mean I wasn't going to school. It doesn't mean I didn't have my college degree, but I had no plan, no purpose other than play baseball. And it's a cautionary tale to a lot of young athletes. If you don't have a backup plan, you see, even Tom Brady struggling with what do I do after football,
Right.
right? When you have done something your entire life, for me, it was age 4 through 26. That's 21 years. Now what do I do? Right.
Right.
And you become lost if you don't have other life plans, life goals. So it's a cautionary tale. But on the flip side, a lot of my story is what I'm doing now to be successful, what life after prison is. As you know, my username on TikTok is Life After Prison. Obviously, you see in the background the iconic brand, which is a brand I started, which, I always use the slogan, turning cons into icons. And to me, what that stands for is not selling yourself short after prison, right? Just because I have a felon moniker on my name does not mean I have to sell myself short and say, the best I can do is a minimum wage job, flipping burgers, whatever it may be. I have big goals, dreams, aspirations. Part of it is telling my story and trying to affect other people coming after me, knowing that they have a chance. And, I made a video about this a couple of days ago that, I get calls from my friends in prison all the time still that, they got a little bit of time left or whatever. And the calls always start the same. You can hear it in their voice. They're beat down. They're depressed. And we get to talking about what I got going on and the goals I'm trying to achieve and the projects I'm working on. And you can hear the demeanor and the motivation in them change because they know because I'm out here doing it that they see light at the end of the tunnel, that they can be successful after prison. Right. And that's a lot of what my story is. I want to show that that's possible and it doesn't need to take long. It doesn't need to be hard. I mean, it takes hard work. It takes focus. It takes motivation, but it can be quick. Right. You can get out of prison and with the right support group, thrive and not go back to the streets. And that's the kind of the message I try and portray and tell and what I try and show in my life. And that all matters to me. And like I said, the brand is very important to me because of what it stands for. And it's just being successful after prison.
Well said, and that's what we do, and that's at the top of the show. That's why I said I greatly appreciate what it is that you're doing because you are what we would hope for inside is something that went national in the face of America that is now coming out speaking about their own injustices within the system. But before we go, the people that thought that they were buying authentic merchandise. How does that resonate with you now, understanding that you manipulated people for your own self-worth?
To me at this point in time, there's nothing to be done. Like I can't go back in the past and change the past. I can't even track down victims to offer restitution. It's just it's an impossible task. Obviously, the prosecution didn't even bother, right? So to me, the only thing I can do is, take this time that I got and the path, I never say I regret the past or that I regret my crime because I wouldn't be sitting here with you today telling this story if it wasn't for that.
Amen.
Right. So do I regret the decisions I made? Absolutely. They were wrong decisions, but I'm happy and satisfied of where I'm at in life right now and the opportunities that I have. So going forward to me is I just need to do more good than damage I caused, right? And part of that is I have a roommate with me right now. He lives with me right now that I met in county jail in Ohio 7 years ago. Heroin addict, left for dead by his family. Didn't know where he was going, what he was doing 7 years ago, and I offered him a plane ticket out to Las Vegas and a bedroom in my house with my family, with my mom and dad at the time. And as I just alluded to, he still lives with me. He's clean and sober, never missed a day of work, tells us all the time we saved his life. Awesome. Right? So that alone, is worth what I went through. And that alone is also more good than, people buying $50 fake autographs. This man's life was saved. But that doesn't mean my work is done, right? I need to continue doing good to make up for what that is. And I have a platform to do it. And, unfortunately, sometimes it's about talking about my case or talking about prison, but the thought process I have, if I tell a prison story and 100,000 people watch it, if 1% of those people come to my page on my platform and hear the real message, it was worth telling that prison story, even if I didn't want to. It's all about just getting to the real message, which is, reintegration and success, and overcoming adversity, to be successful, to become a better person. And that's what really matters.
Well said, my friend. And that's the premise. I think that a lot of us create what we got going on, and as stressful as my life is, everything that I got goes into my nonprofit because it's all that I have. This is all that I have, and it's like you said, this is all that I have to contribute to the communities that I helped distribute this poison that we're dealing with all across America. And so if I leave this place tomorrow, I know I can leave knowing that I've done everything that I possibly could to try to fix some of the issues that I helped cause. So that's all we can do, partner. And I agree with you 100%. I don't regret anything from the past because it created who is here today. And I love every aspect of this person and what I've become from those experiences. And I find pride in these experiences because I know that 99.9% of the human beings that judge me could never even begin to walk in those experiences that I've been through. So I find pride in that. I hold my head up for that I was able to walk through that, not sell my soul, not become something that I wasn't, but to find myself, my true self, and deliver from there. So that's the message, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Social media is a weird place sometimes, full of a lot of people with a lot of hatred, right? And a lot of times, I get that I almost seem proud talking about my case or my time or what I'm doing now. And the fact of the matter is I'm not proud of my crime, but I'm proud of the fact that I navigated a prison system that's supposed to break you. It's supposed to make you into a repeat offender. It's supposed to break you down and make you commit more crime to go back and feed the system. And instead, I came out a better person. I came out with a clear purpose in life, a clear direction of what I want to do, and who I inspire and motivate. And for all the haters that are out there that try and put me down, there's so many people out there that support me and send me messages like, I show your message to my kids, or I tell my husband or my son in prison about you. I had a lady the other day asking me if I would write her son in prison just so he knows he has a chance on afterward. And that's the kind of stuff that makes me keep going, makes me keep telling my story, because it's those type of people that the message is for. The message isn't for the haters in society that maybe haven't dealt with adversity, haven't had to overcome anything. It's for all the people that do have to overcome adversity and how to be a better person. And as long as, I'm getting those types of messages and inspiring those people and motivating those people, that's all that matters.
Amen, good brother. So how can the people find you?
Oh man, you can find me here on YouTube, Cliff Panezich. Actually, it's everywhere on every platform, but you can go to cliffpanezich.com. That's got all my social media platforms: TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Snapchat, Facebook. And also, if you're interested in the Iconic brand, it's iconicbrandclothing.com. My mission statement is on there. We got new apparel. That's how you can support me if you want to support the cause and everything I'm trying to do. So I appreciate y'all, and I appreciate you having me on, man. I truly appreciate it. This was a good and a fun interview, man.
I appreciate that, man. And that's why I just try to keep it copacetic, man. I just try to get the real out to the people. And essentially just try to get people to understand, like you said at the top, how we can just get wrapped up in emotions, reactive thinking that could lead down a rabbit hole of pure hell. So it's my thing is just really trying to teach people how to listen to that inner self, because there's always that inner self telling us, man, listen, you're messing up right now. You know what I mean? Like, but so
to me, it's anybody out there that thinks it can't happen to them, it can. 1 30-second lapse in judgment can put you the same place that me or you went, right? And it's always about perspective. It's about keeping that in mind. I even know for myself right now, I'm on probation. I don't fear probation. I don't have a problem with it. But it's always, I'm very aware of what I'm doing, and that, any little slip up can put me back in prison. And I walk a straight line, but you got to be self-aware of what's going on, and so does everybody else. If you think it can't happen to you, that's a bad place to be, because it can.
Absolutely. So Miss Yvette Harvey, she wraps up saying that your story made her smile. She's so happy to see that you're doing well for the world. I'm talking about your iconic brand and whatnot. But essentially that's it, man. Again, yeah, thank you, Cliff, for coming on and rapping. For the listener, again, please visit www.cominghomecoalition.com. Sign up for the raffle. I mean, I'm giving away free Tampa Bay Rays tickets, and I can't get anybody to sign up for this raffle, man. So again, it's for a good cause to support Eddie Deloy, again, from homelessness to self-sufficiency. And yeah, Cliff, I'll catch you on the flip side. So you're done with TikTok? What's going on with TikTok?
No, I got banned from TikTok Live, basically for just answering some questions about prison. So I'm not going live over there anymore. But I'm trying to push more of my story over to YouTube and Instagram. TikTok's not the place. It's just too censored to, really talk about the injustices and what goes on in prison and whatnot. And unfortunately, that's not the stuff I always like talking about, but it has to be talked about. And like I said, for me, my message is, if I can tell a prison story and get 100,000 views, if 1,000 of those people then come to my page and hear the real message, the life after prison message, the iconic brand, turning cons into icons, that's what really matters. So I'll continue to tell those stories if it means everything else is going to get heard.
Amen, Cliff. Well, you take care, stay safe, partner, and I'll catch you on the flip side. For my listeners, I love you guys. If you haven't heard it from nowhere else, you can hear it from Thomas Freeme at all times. I love you, stay safe, and be your best self. Man, we out of here.
Appreciate you, man. Take care.